sort of ready. Hold on. How long have we been doing this, people? I don't even know, right? Okay, here we go.
Yay, Zoom. All right. Well, welcome
Yay, Zoom.
to Thursday Tidbits. If you haven't been here before, we're glad that you're here with us. If you are a regular attender, we're very glad to see you again. I'm Carly Deathridge. I work in health promotion. We are the prevention and education arm of the Center for Counseling and Wellbeing. And today we are giving you a tidbit of information about boundaries. If you want more, or if you want to bring this content to your team, you are welcome to email Julia and I, and we're happy to give you more. The intention for tidbits is just to get a little taste of the information to help you be well, to help your students be well as we continue navigating some weird times. There should be a Qualtrics link in the chat. I'll reshare it just for you to give us some feedback and to also mark that you attended this session. You'll get credit from the Pedagogy Institute once you've completed 3 sessions and written a critical reflection. Just a note that this is not meant to be a time for counseling for any of us. It's not meant to be to teach you all to be counselors, but to help students and staff that you might encounter and to point them in the right direction for resources. So thanks again for being here. Please put your questions in the chat box and I will let Julia take it away.
All right, hi everyone. So just take a big deep breath because I came racing in and you probably did too. And this, even if you don't listen, it's a good 30 minutes where you can just sort of pause and take your own tidbit. I just came from a meeting and somebody asked about how is workforce managing through all of this. And I said, everybody that I encounter is tired and trying to be compassionate and having a hard time finding motivation and stressed. And so I hope that today we can frame this in the sense of really boundaries are a superpower. And that when we have really healthy boundaries, that we also are doing some self-protection, that it's not that we don't want to help, but we have capacity. There's a moment that we can only do so much, whether that's a skill set or a something that I do or don't know how to do. And we all have a different kind of capacity. So I'll start it off kind of with that theme and sort of thinking around that in our roles, is it our job to be a friend or to be friendly? And I think that sort of shifts the mindset that yes, we love our students and we're going to be there for them, but really the point isn't that we are serving in a role as a friendship. So we get courses in boundary development in behavioral health. And I've realized over time that not everybody has these. I mean, I think teachers do and nurses do, lots of places do, but I don't see that as part of the curriculum around what faculty get and other higher ed professionals get. And so really just to put in the frame, like a boundary creates this healthy relationship, right? Where I'm sort of balancing, and I've given up on the idea of balance in my life. I've decided it's a perfect imbalance. And am I managing that imbalance well? But how do I maintain that healthy relationship? By this balance of over involvement and under involvement. And we're going to talk some about what that might look like in student development. So think for just a quick minute, what makes you show up every day for work? And if you want to share it in the chat, because sometimes just putting things out there to the world, if we're thinking, I actually don't know, we might just steal one of your ideas. But what makes you show up every day for work? And I can tell you when I first came to UCO, I struggled with what's the mission here. I'd always worked in nonprofit where the mission is really clear. And then as I got involved with my work, I realized that really the mission of serving people hasn't changed at all just because it's an educational setting. And so for me, I show up every day for work because students come here enthused and excited with this goal set of wanting to graduate. And I really show up because I want to help them get to that end state and maybe help them become lifelong learners. But reconnecting to why you're here is a really important piece of the work. But equally important is, have you created an environment where if you went away, nobody would know what to do? If you left and weren't at work, would your students know how to enroll in a class? If I left and went away, would my team know how to keep the place running and to do the work that we've created? Or would the work that you've done stop? And we all come and go, whether that's for a vacation or to leave a workforce. And if the reason I came to work every day is to sustain this effort, right? It's both for me and it's for this institution, then we need to be thinking about, am I empowering or disempowering the people that I serve? Because people need to know that they can continue even if I'm not present. So when you become too needed, that sort of is an indication to at least reflect on whether or not I need to make a shift. And this can happen with parenting, like with my kids. If they say, where are my pants? I might know where their pants are, but this doesn't help with their own ability to problem solve. Or I might know how to write a letter to the teacher or the faculty member, but if they don't develop that skill for navigating conflict, what happens if I'm not available and they have conflict and need to navigate it? So instead, teaching people how to navigate that instead of doing for them. And I have noticed in higher ed, we really love our students. And sometimes we are doing for when it's a skill that they might struggle with, but they'll gain from learning, or it's easier for them to ask us and it's easier for us to do it. So we just do. And that doesn't really help anybody either. And so that's why I say, how's that work out for you? Because usually when we overdo, when we overextend, when we do things that people could do for themselves, it looks like this stuff on the left side of the screen. We exert our own competence onto other people. We bend over backwards to make sure people succeed. And then we're upset when they don't. Because our investment is around sort of our emotional giving. We give people our cell phones and tell them you can call me 24/7 and I'll help you. We do what I've been called out on lately, working late and coming in early. We sign up for every committee and then the stuff on our desk isn't getting done and we don't know how to manage it. And so sometimes being able to sit back and say, what are the tasks that I have? Are these the ones that I'm charged to do? Do I have space and capacity to do more? And there will be students who need more of us than others on any given occasion. But when we're doing for in a way that doesn't promote their growth, and whether that's you as a leader of a team with you, the people that you work for, or a student organization and you're leading students, or student workers that work for you, I mean, they're really here to learn and grow. And so how do we help people that we serve learn and grow when we are doing for? So then what happens is, so we do and do and do and do, and we love, 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 and we don't protect our boundaries. And then all these things happen. I was talking yesterday with a group and sharing that how much I hate matching socks. And it's not so much that that's a hard task, but it just annoys me. There's always so many socks and there's never all the pairs. And I don't know why my children in their younger years weren't able to put the socks that matched into the laundry basket. And so there came a point in time that I said, I'm not matching socks anymore. I'm putting them in this little bucket and everybody can go dig out their own socks. And it wasn't the reason I did it is because I started resenting doing laundry and my children needed clean clothes. And then I started resenting doing this task, right? So it wasn't about the socks. And that's usually the problem. Usually when we are blaming students or blaming our colleagues or saying yes, 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 and then getting mad, it's usually not about what we're doing. It's usually something else back behind that it's coming out as this other thing. And a lot of times it is around setting these boundaries and having overextended yourself and not really being honest about what is leading me to this burnout spot. So if you see this little picture, everybody knows what it is, right? So when I do this with students, I say, what do you see? And we talk about how there's a parking lot and there's cars in the parking lot and there's a, I think that's Murdahl Residential Hall. There's the library in Old North, right? There's all these spaces and places. And then I start poking holes and saying, well, can you drive on the sidewalk? If there's no parking place right there in that left corner, can I just pull up on the sidewalk? Can I just go into Murdahl Hall whenever I feel like it? Can I show up in the president's office and knock on the door and demand to be seen, right? We set boundaries structurally because that's what keeps our campus safe. That's what provides the campus predictability. You can walk down a sidewalk and pretty confidently know a car's not coming. Golf cart, person on scooter, maybe something different, but you can pretty predictably know that you're going to be safe walking on the sidewalks. You can pretty predictably know that if you live in housing and you have to swipe to get in as a resident, that only residents are going to be there, or people are going to be there as a guest of someone else, and you're mostly safe in that environment. You can know that if I go to the library and pick the quiet floor, that I'm going to be able to sit here quietly and focus. And so boundaries give us safety and security when they are predictable. And that's emotional security, physical security. And when we overextend those boundaries over and over and over, it starts to feel like I have no control of my environment, no control of my emotions, no control of my sense of self. There are all kinds of boundaries. So a lot of times people talk about the task boundaries or the people boundaries, but there's other boundaries, like there is the boundary of time. If you're somebody who gets on TikTok, I learned recently that there's a little person that comes up and says, hey, I think you've been on here a little bit too long. I personally have not seen that person yet. But apparently if you've seen that person, you've been on there. Somebody said 90 minutes or something like that. I don't even know. And so being able to recognize that boundary of time. Did I lose time, and what suffered because I did? If it's intentional, I've given myself an hour and a half today to be on TikTok, and that's a gift to myself. That's an intentional thing that you're doing, and that might not be a boundary violation, right? Or I've decided, like this last week, I drove stuff up to my child in Stillwater, not something I would normally do if you forget something, but I decided there had been this patch of time that a little bit more emotional support was needed for her. And so I was willing to take that time to go do that. But in most situations, I might say, I'm not the one who forgot that. You're going to need to make time to come home to get it. And so to be able to think about when it's intentional and I'm doing more, am I sort of in control of that situation? Is it going to be okay with me? Am I going to be resentful? Am I going to regret having done this task? And making sure that sort of these are balanced out. In our family, and now Brene Brown, she stole it from me. I had it first, I would just like to say. So we have this idea of a marble jar. And in our family, we talk about giving your marbles to people. People need something, so I give you a marble, right? Will you pick up something for me at the store, right? I'm asking for one of your marbles. But my jar may be low when you ask me. And so later I might say, you've taken a lot of my marbles and I really need you to be replenishing some of my marbles. And the marbles can be all different sizes, right? Going and picking something up when I'm already at the store, that may be a tiny marble. Having to put clothes on and go to the store for you, that's a much bigger marble. And so being able to balance out, so being able to think about myself as this marble jar and what kinds of things, what kinds of activities, what kinds of people give me marbles, take my marbles, and is it even? And so it becomes for us in our family just kind of this framework of talking about, I feel like you've taken all my marbles. And so, or maybe I've lost my marbles. But being able to use that, because then we can kind of mitigate some of these things about feeling bad, about giving and giving and giving, about thinking I'm the only one who's going to help this student through this particular task. And I have actually found with sometimes a delay, people will solve their own problems. And so if you take an example for our team, we meet mostly every other week as a team. We meet individually together with leaders and supervisors and supervisees kind of setting. And one, that gives us a lot of time in between to solve our own problems, so that when we're together, we can kind of focus on what do we want to do to work differently and better, instead of solve this problem, solve this problem, solve this problem. And students are like that too. They might text you in the middle of the night or, hey, I can't find this book in the bookstore. I'm just making stuff up. But then because you're not answering, they're going to keep trying. And it might feel better for them when they make this discovery on their own and they succeed on that problem on their own. Most certainly there are problems that rise to the top that we help navigate for them, right? That if I see a student who's in distress on the campus, I'm going to stop and pause and offer. I'm not going to wait for them just to solve that problem on their own. So being able to figure out at what point do I intervene and what point do I just let you struggle a little bit, because it might be helpful. Sometimes our boundaries, we overdo because it's easier for us. And so a silly example, my kids don't tie their shoes correctly because when they were little, we had worked on it and worked on it and worked on it. And it would have been easier for me to tie their shoes and let's go to the store. But I, at some point decided, if I keep doing this, they're like almost 4. and if they don't learn how to do this, I can't do this for them when they go to school. And so I said, you're just going to need to grab the shoes and figure it out while we're driving. And so over time, they actually started they don't do it right, or I don't even know what right tying your shoes is. But sometimes it's easier to throw people in the car and just do it for them, because it's harder sometimes to walk along, watch somebody struggle, kind of help them, guide them with some thought-provoking questions, and let them solve the problem on their own. If you were involved with Odyssey of the Mind in high school, they have this kind of rule sheet, and I think it goes from elementary all the way through college. But when you're the adult person there, you're not allowed to fix the problem, and they have to build these big, is it Rube Goldberg machines? I can never remember the right words. You know, those things where you hit the plate and it breaks and it rolls down and then it makes pancakes at the end or whatever. The adults can only say things like, I'm wondering what would happen if you looked more closely at that ball and how it's rolling, right? You're only able to give them some information that will help them think differently about the problem. And I really think in higher ed, that's part of our role, right? We're supposed to sort of give you some information and let you critically explore how you're going to solve this problem. So if we pick advising, if I go in and enroll you, there's going to come a time that you don't really know how to enroll yourself. I think that was a gift of COVID. I watched my daughter enroll at where she's going to school, and to pull up the screen and make the student do it, I thought was pretty genius, because from the get-go, nobody was pushing the keys for her, and she learned how to do it pretty quickly. It doesn't mean we don't hold students accountable. If you set a tone for expected behavior, keep reminding them about that tone for expected behavior, right? These are my office hours. You keep showing up outside of office hours, and this is when I've planned time to do what I'm planning to do. If you could, I'll meet with you after hours, but it has to be an appointment, or you can drop in during my office hours. So, right, we're not saying I'm not going to serve you. We're starting with yes and saying I am actually going to meet with you. And these are the ways in which I'm going to make that happen. And then letting the student kind of make some of those decisions. Whoops, I went the wrong way. Social media, I think about my social media as my virtual living room, and I let people into those individual spaces that fit the context of that. So like LinkedIn, anybody that I am working with, I am happy to connect over LinkedIn. I am not as willing to connect over Instagram and Facebook, maybe, where I'm putting much more personal information and really protect that, but want those friendships in that social media forum. Everybody moderates theirs differently. But when you have think about the boundary side, if I want to go to a football game with my family and maybe we post a picture of us at a tailgate party, and then every student that I work with sees that, and then they are starting to apply what they saw in that picture to my behaviors inside my work setting. Well, now that's a little bit of a boundary moment, right? That they don't need that information about me for me to be able to be aligned with them in our work, our client relationship. So to be thinking about, spend some time kind of looking at how are you using social media? Is it your friend or your foe? Do you need to make some adjustments that really give you back control over what people know? So here's a few little rules that I think are important. One is to have rules, right? Not to just be free floating. That's your foundation. When we think about that boundary line and all of the stuff with the university, think about what are my property lines? Where will I let people come in? What happens if I have an open door? I always have my door open unless I'm with someone, but that doesn't mean just drop in. I don't like working behind a closed door, but open door stuff, you tend to only see crises when you have this open door policy. On a good team, you might pop in and go, hey, something funny happened to me today, but that's not usually work related, or it might be a quick thing. Hey, I just sent you an email. Can you take a look? Because I need to move on with this. And it's an immediate timing thing. But often what happens for people with open doors is all you hear about is the messes, and then you never really have time to do your own job. Making sure that you're paying attention to dual relationships. Am I Am I sending a message that I value this student more than this student because I meet them for Starbucks every week? Or staff, like I go to lunch with this person every week. If everybody saw me, would they think that we have a relationship and now you won't be able to come talk to me about the problem you have with that person? So being able to kind of look at what are the ways I'm interacting with people, how are those perhaps impacting the way I'm having other exchanges with other people, and are those, I hate the word appropriate, but are those appropriate for my role and what I'm trying to do in this space? We ask ourselves as clinicians when we're sharing, if I share this information about myself, who benefits? Is it me or the student? And so I think that that's a good question a lot, because sometimes we are worn smooth, slick, and not letting our filters work in our favor. And so we start kind of sharing our personal problems, and probably that's for your benefit. And so using the people who would normally help you through those problems, not the people who might be in your charge, to kind of work through some of those things is usually a good rule of thumb. Making sure, this analogy on here about taking out the trash and being aware of spilled garbage. Boundaries, this is a horrible metaphor, but I really like it, so I share it anyway. Boundaries are a little bit like a trash can with a trash bag in it. You put trash into the trash bag that's contained in the trash can, and that trash can is helping it. Things might still poke through the bag, right? There might be a sharp object in there that tears the bag, but that boundary keeps it from spilling everywhere. And so it's a little bit like that with human beings. We set these boundaries. It doesn't mean they're not going to be hard and they're going to poke at us and we're going to have problems. Those things are all going to happen. But that boundary helps us know where I start and you stop, and helps us mitigate that relationship. So I'm really clear about that. And then the stuff doesn't spill everywhere, because without boundaries, that's what happened. I will tell you, in my clinical life, when I look at bad behaviors, like licensing behaviors where people got held accountable, it never starts with, I think I'm really going to do harm to somebody. It usually starts with, oh man, they don't have any food. I'm going to take them some food. And then after a few weeks, I'm just going to take them food every Monday. Well, I think I'll just take them shopping and buy their food for them. And then I'm going to maybe just start getting their checkbook, and we'll balance it and make sure that they have food. Well, a few weeks down the road, this is a lot of work. I'm going to go ahead and buy me some bread and some milk with their money because I'm doing all of this work for them. And then next thing you know, the boundaries are so unclear and the person is saying, wait a minute, something's broken here. And that's usually what happens. Usually it's this little slippery slope that starts out with kindness, that something breaks, and then it gets really, really messy. It doesn't usually start with the egregious event when it's around boundary violations. Oh, I wanted to also point out on that page to look at your vacation accruals, because vacation is only a benefit if you use it. And so if you find that I'm not accruing anymore, that boundary of time, what's happening that you're giving more to UCO than you're allowing UCO to give to you. And so making sure that you're using that time, it's for you. That's a recharge time, a refresh time, a stay committed to the organization time. So looking at that is a really important thing. Making sure you know the tipping point. I say it's an unbalanced life, right? I'm not going to make it perfect, but I want to figure out a way that both sides are equally unbalanced, maybe, so that I can keep showing up for work and loving my job. Turnover is horrible for a multitude of reasons. Most people really love the jobs that they leave, typically. And so making sure that that doesn't happen to you. Nobody wants you to get burned out. And yes, organizations can be doing stuff to you, but first taking a look at what am I doing to myself that might be causing this and might be attributing to what I'm experiencing. And then have I communicated that back out to see if it's fixable? Because hopefully there's things that can be some give and take and we can make some adjustments. Let me check the time. I'm going to go to the next slide just because. So think about kind of things that you might need to stop doing that would make room for you, that would create space for you to think and be creative and innovative, and to do the tasks that you know are assigned to you. Because it might not be bad just to say, we say on our team, let's just stick this over here in the parking lot. It won't make or break the work that we're doing. It would be fun to do and it would be good for students, but we just don't have the energy or the mindset to do it right now. So to really think about, what is it that I need to stop doing? Starting with yes also means that you work hard to stay calm in hard situations. So not flipping your lid, because sometimes when we are overwhelmed, it's our job to have the most self-awareness, not the students to have the most self-awareness. So I just put this in there to think about that because it's a really important piece. I have used the phrase flying in formation. So when you, and this is the Blue Angels, there's the Thunderbirds as well out there in the world, all of them, everybody in that formation has a role. Somebody's the navigator, somebody's kind of keeping them on pace with speed, somebody is talking about what they're going to be doing next, somebody else is kind of making sure that sometimes they fly 18 inches apart and there's a person that's sort of monitoring that. If any one of them flies out of formation, that causes a major crash, right? A major event. So when we're thinking about your roles on campus, it is fun sometimes to, let me think of something. Let's imagine that I love running intramurals. I don't know. That if I go and say, hey, I want to organize a team, and that is joyful for me. And so I go and I join the team and I make the team and I go to practice and I do all these things and it's really fun for me and I love these students. Well, something else was let go because I did that. And I'm probably not the best intramural coach. I know about this much from not so many sports. And so probably my team's going to lose and they're going to be disappointed. And so really figuring out what's the lane. There's always a little bit of gray on either side, right? That where I can be somebody in tutoring and offer good advice to someone. I can be someone in disabilities and know a little bit about how to enroll, but recognizing when it's at a tipping point and when I should really be saying it is time for me to tag you in because this is outside of my scope, because then we end up making bigger messes, kind of like that slippery slope. And then we start feeling bad and it's a boundary violation, all of those things. Another thing that's only a benefit if you use it is our EAP, and ComPsych is the EAP right now. I put all the information up there. You can call them anytime. There's actually a self-help kind of whole section on there that is web-based. That's fantastic. It's not just counseling. Someone told me that you're planning a party and you want to find out how much 5 different caterers are, and this is what you want, that they actually have people who will go do some exploration around, here's some stuff and here's all the places. And then they did all your homework for you. So then you can pick the vendor that you want to use for the bouncy house or whatever it is. So to realize that there are things in ComPsych that help you balance your life a little bit differently, and to not forget to use those. I mean, UCO is paying for you to utilize this, and it does have counseling sessions, but that isn't the bulk of what they have available within there. So some homework for you. One is maybe looking, and again, we've recorded this. You can take a picture of this. These are just some kinds of things that I thought would be really good if I were in this moment wanting to reflect on what am I doing here. The one I would highly recommend is that life values inventory. Sometimes when things get all out of whack, I'm behaving over here outside of my own values even, and I'm struggling. And so figuring out how to lean back into my values and let my values guide my behavior sometimes gets things back out of whack and gets our boundaries more realigned with our behaviors and how we're acting in the world. So there's a few choices for you. So that's the end. Does anybody have any questions, or does anybody kind of have maybe a takeaway of something that resonated for them? Anybody want to cheer each other on?